The loudest people in the room aren't the strongest. Their volume is a disguise. Real strength moves without performance. It's the warhorse that doesn't flinch at the horn, steady in the storm while others scatter. It's the ground that remembers the rhino's single step, long after the noise of restless creatures has faded. Power in silence doesn't announce itself. It doesn't audition for applause. It exists, calm, steady, and undeniable. And yet, most of us give away that power every single day. We leak it without even noticing. We pour it into people who have already walked away. We drain it in arguments with those who have already decided not to hear us. We rehearse grudges as if bitterness were fuel, and we replay our mistakes as if regret could rewrite the past. We even place our worth into strangers' hands, waiting for them to clap before we allow ourselves to stand tall. We leak power chasing what should be released, arguing where truth isn't welcome, and rehearsing past mistakes as if pain were a script. No wonder so many of us feel exhausted. Our energy is being siphoned off by distractions that don't deserve us. But the strong, they play by a different code. They guard their energy like firewood in winter. They do not waste their flame on places that give no warmth. They know where to stand firm, when to speak, and, most importantly, when to walk away. This is where Stoic philosophy becomes not just ancient wisdom, but a modern shield. The Stoics taught us about the dichotomy of control, what is and isn't within our grasp. They urged us to love fate, amor fati, to stop resisting what life has already written. They reminded us of memento mori, the brevity of life, the urgency of not wasting it. When you bring these principles together, you begin to see what the strong have always known. Silence, restraint, and clarity aren't signs of weakness. They are the ultimate signs of mastery, and that's exactly what you and I are going to uncover together. By the end of this journey, you'll have a quiet code, 8 things the strong never waste time on, and practical ways to reclaim your strength today. Not theory, not abstract quotes, but real applications you can use the moment this video ends. But I want you to do more than just listen. I want you to step into the conversation with me. If power and silence is your theme this year, type quiet power in the comments so I know I'm speaking to you. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to True Stoic Way for weekly field-tested Stoic tools, so you don't just learn wisdom, you live it. Because the truth is simple. Life is too short to bleed energy into things unworthy of you. If you don't decide where your power goes, the world will gladly decide for you, and their choice will never serve your peace. So let's take that power back. Let's start with the most common leak of all. Chasing those who already chose the exit. Lesson 1. Stop chasing people who walk away. There's a quiet dignity in letting someone walk away, yet it's one of the hardest lessons for most of us to learn. Our instinct when someone pulls back is to reach forward. When the texts slow down, we type longer messages. When the calls stop, we dial again. When the silence grows, we fill it with explanations, apologies, and endless replays of what we might have done wrong. But here is the unshakable truth. Strength isn't proven by how hard you chase someone who leaves. It's proven by how firmly you stand when they do. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Never value anything as profitable that costs you your self-respect." Chasing those who have already chosen the exit is the fastest way to pay that exact price. Every desperate message, every forced conversation, every attempt to win back someone who has already withdrawn is a tax on your dignity. And when dignity is gone, peace follows. Take Rachel, for example. For years, she and Katie were inseparable. Coffee dates, late-night talks, inside jokes that no one else understood. But slowly, Katie changed. The replies grew shorter. Invitations were dodged. Plans were canceled last minute with excuses that felt thinner each time. Rachel felt it slipping but wasn't ready to accept it. She doubled her efforts. She invited Katie to lunch, sent thoughtful texts, even apologized for things she hadn't done, just to keep the friendship alive. But the more she chased, the less she received. One afternoon, after yet another unanswered message, Rachel sat staring at her phone. She realized she was in a one-sided relationship with a ghost. She wasn't connecting anymore. She was clinging. And the more she clung, the smaller she felt. That day, she made a different choice. She didn't stage a dramatic confrontation. She didn't beg for clarity. She simply stopped chasing. She allowed the silence to stand, And in that silence, she rediscovered something more valuable than Katie's friendship. She rediscovered herself. The energy she had poured into being chosen, she redirected into choosing herself. Her mornings became lighter. Her confidence returned. Not because Katie came back, she didn't, but because Rachel finally came back to herself. Psychology explains this pattern. Part of it is intermittent reinforcement, the same principle that makes slot machines addictive. When someone gives you attention sometimes and withdraws other times, your brain starts craving the reward, desperate for the next moment of closeness. That craving can make you chase harder, even when logic tells you it's over. The other part is the fear of abandonment. Being left can stir childhood wounds, a primal fear that says, if they leave, it means I'm not enough. To quiet that fear, we chase. But the chase doesn't solve the wound, it deepens it. The Stoics would say this: what is outside your control must never dictate the state of your soul. If someone chooses to leave, that choice is theirs, not yours. To resist it is to wrestle with reality itself, and reality always wins. So what do strong people do instead? They follow 3 steps. 1. Name the exit. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't romanticize the ghosting. Say it plainly. This person is withdrawing. Naming reality breaks the illusion that they might magically return if you just try harder. 2. Return the key. Imagine you've been handing this person the keys to your emotional home. Every unanswered message is them leaving the door unlocked. Take the keys back. Reclaim the right to decide who enters your energy. 3. Reinvest. The energy you once spent chasing, redirect it into your health, your skills, your passions, and, most importantly, into the relationships that actually reciprocate. Pour your attention into those who prove, through action, that they value your presence. When you stop chasing, something shifts. You no longer feel like you're running after scraps of affection. Instead, you're walking steadily toward the people and the future meant for you. And in that shift, you discover the quiet confidence of someone who refuses to beg for a seat at any table. They build their own. So let me leave you with this. If someone exits your life without respect, they were never meant to stay. Don't chase closure, become it. If this hit home, drop "I choose myself" below. Someone needs to read your reminder. And when you stop chasing, another temptation creeps in. The urge to defend yourself, to prove your point, to argue until the other side finally understands. Which brings us to the loudest drain of peace, arguing with closed minds. Lesson 2. Stop arguing with closed minds. There's a unique exhaustion that comes from trying to explain yourself to someone who has already decided not to listen. You know the type. They nod only so they can cut you off. They twist your words to fit their script. They don't hear you to understand, they hear you to reload. Every sentence becomes ammunition for their counterattack. And here's the trap. The more you argue, the more you believe that if you just phrase it perfectly, they'll finally get it. But they won't. Because a closed mind doesn't want clarity. It wants conquest. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If someone shows me I'm mistaken, I gladly change." Notice the humility there. A strong mind welcomes correction. A closed mind fears it. A strong mind seeks truth. A closed mind seeks victory. The moment you find yourself arguing not to exchange insight but to outlast someone's ego, you've already lost something greater than the debate, your peace. Take Greg. At a family gathering, he was cornered by an uncle who lived for political debates. Greg wasn't even trying to argue. He simply voiced a different perspective. Calmly, respectfully, but his uncle wasn't there to understand. He raised his voice, interrupted mid-sentence, mocked Greg's points, and talked over him as if volume equaled truth. Greg felt his chest tighten. The old version of him would have fought back. He would have matched insult with sharp logic, determined to prove he was right. But this time, he paused. He took a sip of water, smiled, and said, "You've already made up your mind. That's okay." Then he stood up and walked away. Later, his cousin asked, "Why didn't you argue? You had better points." Greg's answer was simple. "I wasn't speaking to be right. I was speaking to be real. And being real doesn't require applause or agreement." That's the strength of silence. You don't waste energy convincing the unconvincible. You state your truth, and if it isn't welcomed, you conserve your power. Psychology calls this the backfire effect. When someone is confronted with evidence against their belief, instead of changing, they dig deeper into their position. Their ego feels threatened, ego threat, so they protect their identity at all costs. Identity protective cognition. In other words, facts don't matter if someone's sense of self is on the line. That's why arguing often leaves you drained, while the other person leaves even more convinced they were right all along. The Stoics remind us, truth doesn't need shouting. It doesn't need endless repetition. If someone is ready, a whisper will do. If they're not, even thunder won't change them. Strong people understand this. They don't argue for victory. They speak for clarity. And when clarity is rejected, they walk away with dignity intact. So how do you know when to stop talking? Here's a practical Stoic framework. 1. The signal test. Before diving into dialogue, ask, are you open to changing your view if new facts appear? If the answer is no, or if the question itself irritates them, you already have your answer. 2. The two-turn rule. If you're interrupted or mocked twice, you don't push further. You exit, not angrily, but gracefully. I see we're in different places, that's fine. And you redirect your energy elsewhere. 3. Clarity over conquest. Write down 3 clear points for yourself. Share them if someone genuinely wants to listen. But resist the urge to unload them onto those committed to misunderstanding you. Walking away doesn't mean you lost. It means you refuse to pay the cost of wrestling with a wall. Strength isn't measured by how long you endure nonsense. It's measured by how quickly you recognize it. Remember this, not every conversation is worth having, and not every argument deserves a winner. Save this for holiday debates. And if you've exited a pointless argument this month, comment, silence, victory. Free from pointless debates, we face a subtler trap. The constant noise we create by complaining about things we could actually change. Lesson 3. Stop complaining about what you can change. Complaining feels good, at least for a moment. It gives the illusion of release, the sense that by voicing the problem, we've somehow lessened its weight. But here's the catch. Complaining doesn't solve the problem, it rehearses it, and rehearsal makes it stronger. Strong people know this. They understand that every time you speak about something you could change but won't, you reinforce your identity as a victim of your own circumstances. You turn yourself into a prisoner, rattling the bars instead of finding the key. Epictetus put it plainly. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Talking about change is easy. Living it, that's where the strength lies. Take Megan. Every morning she woke up with a sigh, dreading her job. The commute was long, the office air heavy, her boss dismissive. At lunch, she vented to her coworkers. After work, she called her sister to unload. It became her daily script. My boss is toxic, my work is pointless, my life feels stuck. At first, people sympathized. They nodded, offered advice, even comforted her. But as months turned into years, their patience wore thin. They noticed nothing ever changed. Megan wasn't trapped. She was rehearsing. One day, during yet another lunch rant, her friend put down her fork and said bluntly, "You've been telling the same story for 2 years. What are you going to do about it?" That question hit harder than any insult. Megan realized she was addicted to her own misery. The venting didn't move her forward, it anchored her in place. Within a week, she updated her resume. Within 3 months, she had a new job and a new rhythm. And with it, a lighter spirit. The problem wasn't her circumstances, it was her decision to keep complaining instead of changing. Psychology explains this cycle. There's learned helplessness, when we convince ourselves that effort is useless, so we don't even try. Instead, we complain to signal our suffering, hoping someone else will fix it. And there's the fact that attention is fuel. Every time we repeat a complaint, we're feeding the victim identity inside us. Like water to a weed, our words make the helplessness grow stronger. The more we talk about being stuck, the more stuck we feel. The Stoics would tell you, you always have 3 options: change it, accept it, or walk away. Complaining is not on the list. Complaining is nothing but delay, disguised as expression. And delay costs you the one resource you never get back: time. 3 practices to break the cycle. 1. The control audit. Draw 3 columns: change, influence, accept. Write down your frustrations. If it belongs in change, do it. If it belongs in influence, plan how to shift it. If it belongs in accept, release it. Complaining about anything outside these categories is wasted breath. 2. One unbearable thing, one irreversible step, within 48 hours. Choose the single aspect of your life you can no longer tolerate. Then take one concrete step that can't be undone. Send the job application, schedule the hard conversation, cancel the draining subscription, delete the toxic number. Action ends the loop. 3. The accountability ritual. Share one change per week with a trusted ally. No venting, no excuses, just your chosen step. When someone else expects progress, complaints lose their oxygen. When you stop complaining, something remarkable happens. You feel lighter not because life magically improved, but because you stopped feeding the heaviness. You broke the cycle of victimhood and reclaimed the power of choice. Strong people don't romanticize their helplessness. They don't wear misery like a badge of authenticity. They understand that while not everything can be controlled, far more can be shaped than most people admit. And peace isn't found in telling stories about pain. It's found in writing new ones through action. So remember this: change your circumstances or change your attitude. Either way, complaining won't get you there. Action will. If you're done rehearsing problems, type action over noise and hit like so YouTube knows to show you more Stoic tools. When action begins, old injuries protest. The past whispers reminders of betrayal, of wounds that haven't fully healed. Which is why the strong refuse the heaviest chain of all: grudges. Lesson 4. Stop carrying grudges. Few chains are heavier than a grudge. It doesn't rattle loudly like anger or explode like rage. It sits quietly, tightening around your heart day by day. At first, it feels like control. I'll never forget what they did. I'll carry this until justice comes. But over time, you realize the truth. A grudge doesn't punish them. It poisons you. Marcus Aurelius captured it in one line: the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. In other words, the highest victory isn't in holding on, it's in rising above. David learned this the hard way. Years ago, he ran a small business with his brother. They built it together from the ground up. But when profits grew, so did greed. His brother siphoned money, lied to clients, and eventually abandoned the partnership, leaving David with debt and a shattered reputation. For 2 years, David replayed the betrayal every day. At breakfast, at meetings, even in moments of joy, the wound whispered, "He ruined you." Every new opportunity felt tainted, as though the shadow of his brother's deception stretched into the future. He believed that holding the grudge kept him safe, that by never forgiving he would never be hurt again. But in truth, the grudge kept him trapped. He wasn't punishing his brother. He was keeping him alive inside his own mind. One night, exhausted by his own bitterness, David realized, "I'm the one paying the price. He took my money, but I'm the one letting him steal my peace." That week, David made a quiet choice. He didn't reconcile. He didn't call. He didn't demand repayment. He simply laid the grudge down. The shift was immediate. His posture lifted. His energy returned. He was free, not because his brother had changed, but because David did. Psychology explains this cycle as the rumination loop. You replay the harm like a movie on repeat, but each rewatch deepens the pain instead of healing it. Your body doesn't know it's just memory, so it releases stress hormones like cortisol, as if the event were happening again. Over time, you build up what some call a cortisol debt, a body trained to live in fight or flight, even when the enemy is long gone. Then comes the justice fantasy. You imagine the perfect apology, the perfect downfall, the moment they finally admit you were right. It feels like relief, but it's just another prison. Because the more you fantasize about their punishment, the longer they occupy the center of your mind. The Stoics would say, the injury was real, but it was brief. The grudge is what makes it permanent. To keep rehearsing someone else's betrayal is to volunteer for chains they never asked you to wear. Strength is not in feeding the fire, it's in starving it. 3 practices to break free. 1. Write and burn. Take a page and write every accusation, every wound. Extract the lesson. What will I do differently because of this? Then burn or tear the page. Symbolically, you end the trial. You choose peace over prosecution. 2. Boundary, closeness. Forgiveness is not reconciliation. You can release the bitterness without re-entering the relationship. The healthy response is often a boundary, deciding how much access, if any, that person has to you in the future. 3. Future focus. Each morning, replace "Why did they?" with "How will I?" Not "Why did they betray me?" but "How will I build wiser partnerships?" Not "Why did they hurt me?" but "How will I protect my peace today?" Shift the spotlight from their crime to your growth. When you let go of a grudge, you don't erase what happened. You release its power to define you. You stop carrying someone else's actions on your back. And in that release, you regain something priceless, the ability to live fully in the present. So remember, you don't let go because they deserve peace. You let go because you do. If you're releasing a grudge this week, comment, "Peace is expensive and I'll pay it." Before we continue, anchor the body so the mind can hold the line. Before we dive further, let's pause. Because philosophy isn't just theory, it's practice. And sometimes the simplest practices are the strongest anchors. Here's a 90-second reset you can do anytime you feel the storm rising. Step 1. Breath. Take 4 to 6 slow, deliberate breaths. Inhale through your nose, steady and calm. Exhale through your mouth, longer than the inhale. Imagine tension leaving with each breath. Step 2. Posture. Pull your shoulders back gently. Unclench your jaw. Let your chest open. A closed body traps the mind. An open body signals safety. Step 3. Gaze. Instead of staring at one point, soften your eyes. Widen your vision to notice the space around you, the walls, the light, the corners of the room. This shift tells your nervous system, we are not in danger. The amygdala, your brain's alarm bell, quiets down. Finally, anchor with this mantra. Not mine to hold. Not mine to chase. Not mine to prove. I return to what I control. Repeat it once. Feel how the weight lightens. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. These 90 seconds are not wasted time. They are reclaimed time. A reset that brings you back to clarity, back to choice, back to strength. Pause, breathe, then continue. If this reset helped, save the video. Now that your nervous system is steady, watch what happens when you stop outsourcing your worth. Lesson 5. Stop seeking validation from strangers. One of the most deceptive traps of our time is the chase for validation. It looks harmless, even ambitious. A like here, a compliment there, a new follower, a raised eyebrow of approval. It feels like fuel. But the truth is darker. When your identity depends on applause, your peace becomes a hostage to opinion. Seneca warned against this centuries ago. In spirit, he said, "Do not be enslaved to the opinions of others, because the moment you hand strangers the authority to define your worth, you've given away your freedom." Alina knew this pain well. She started a podcast with nothing but her voice, her conviction, and her laptop. At first, downloads were scarce. A few friends tuned in, but strangers were harsher. "You sound too serious. Your topics are boring. Who are you to give advice?" She read every comment, replayed every criticism, and nearly quit. Not because she didn't believe in her message, but because she believed too much in her critics. Then came the turning point. One day she caught herself changing an episode topic, not because it mattered to her, but because she thought it would get more clicks. She realized she wasn't creating anymore. She was performing. That night she wrote in her journal, "I would rather be authentic and ignored than fake and applauded." From that moment she stopped checking metrics. She spoke only on topics that lit her up. She filtered feedback, taking the rare constructive note and ignoring the noise. Slowly something shifted. Listeners who resonated with her truth found her. They stayed, they shared, they grew with her. Her podcast didn't explode overnight, but it became steady, loyal, alive. And so did she. Psychology explains the cycle. Every notification triggers a tiny release of dopamine, the brain's reward chemical. Over time, it forms a dopamine loop. You post, you check, you crave the hit. Like any loop, it's addictive. Then comes social comparison. We measure our worth not against our past self, but against curated snapshots of others, always leaving us feeling less. Add the spotlight effect, the false belief that everyone is watching us closely, and you have the perfect recipe for anxiety, doubt, and performance over authenticity. Validation feels like nourishment, but it's only sugar. Quick energy, quick crash. The Stoics remind us, you cannot place your peace in hands that do not know your heart. Strangers may clap today and boo tomorrow. That isn't stability. That's slavery. True freedom comes from alignment. Am I proud of how I showed up today? If the answer is yes, no crowd is needed. 1. Metrics fast, 7 days. For 1 week, refuse to check likes, comments, or views. Instead, focus only on the quality of your craft. Notice how much mental space returns when you starve the loop. 2. Alignment. Check. Ask daily, am I proud of how I showed up? Not, did they like me? Pride in effort is under your control. Applause is not. 3. Feedback filter. Accept only what meets 3 criteria. It is specific, it is kind, and it is actionable. Everything else? Noise. Delete it mentally and move on. When you stop chasing validation, you don't become arrogant, you become grounded. You discover the quiet strength of doing the work because it matters, not because it trends. You free yourself from the roller coaster of public opinion and anchor your peace in self-respect. The irony? When you stop performing, people start paying attention. Because authenticity is magnetic in a way performance never can be. So remember, validation from strangers is loud, but temporary. Self-respect is quiet, but permanent. Choose permanence. If you're done dancing for approval, type alignment over applause and share this with one creator who needs it. Even with alignment, ghosts from yesterday knock. Old mistakes creep back, whispering their shame. Here's how the strong respond. Lesson 6. Stop replaying. Past mistakes. Mistakes have a strange power. They don't just live in the past. They echo in the present. A wrong decision, a failed relationship, a lost opportunity. Long after the event is over, the mind replays it like a film stuck on loop. The dialogue never changes, but the pain feels fresh every time. Reflection can be useful. Rumination is not. Reflection extracts wisdom. Rumination extracts peace. Strong people know the difference. Seneca warned, "Do not stumble over something behind you. The past has already passed. To keep tripping over it is to live as if yesterday still owned today." Kevin knew this all too well. A few years ago, he launched a startup. He poured in his savings, his time, his pride. But within 6 months, the company collapsed. The clients disappeared, debts piled up, and the dream died quicker than it began. For months afterward, Kevin was consumed by replay. He relived every misstep, the delayed launch, the ignored warning signs, the hasty hires. Each memory became a courtroom where he was both prosecutor and prisoner. Then over coffee, a mentor listened patiently and finally said, "Kevin, the lesson is in the ashes. Stop trying to rebuild the fire. Use the warmth of the lesson to build something new." That sentence shifted everything. Kevin realized the past wasn't a sentence. It was a syllabus. Within a year, he started a new venture. This time he built slower, with clearer systems and stronger resilience. The business grew, not because he was flawless, but because he was forged. The failure didn't define him. It refined him. Psychology has names for this. The negativity bias makes us fixate on what went wrong more than what went right. The brain records pain like a warning label. Never do this again. But here's the trap: rumination versus reflection. Reflection reviews the event, pulls out the insight, and closes the book. Rumination keeps the book open on your nightstand, reading the same chapter until it consumes every page of your present life. And here's the paradox. Mistakes are essential for error-based learning. The brain learns more from errors than successes, if you study them, not relive them. The Stoics would say, the past is outside your control. Only your use of it remains within your reach. You cannot undo what was done, but you can decide whether it chains you or trains you. 1. Post-mortem. First page within 24 hours. After a mistake, write facts, factors, 3 rules for next time. That's it. 1 page, then close it. The lesson is stored without becoming a prison. 2. Time-boxed remorse. Allow yourself 15 minutes to feel the sting fully. Cry, vent, write. But set a timer. When it rings, close the file, physically or mentally. Your mistake has been honored, now it must be released. 3. Present bias ritual. After every regretful thought, act small in the now. Send an email, do a workout, make a call. Anchor your body in present action so your mind doesn't drift backward. When you stop replaying mistakes, you don't erase them, you elevate them. They shift from burdens to teachers. You realize that your past is not a prison guard, but a professor. The exam has already ended. The only thing left is the lesson. Strong people aren't flawless. They're forgetful of the illusion that mistakes define them forever. They let the past serve them, not sentence them. So remember, a mistake is not a life sentence. It's a single chapter and you're still the author of the story. Drop lesson, not life sentence, if you're turning a mistake into a method. Once the past stops narrating you, the urge to justify yourself fades too. Which brings us to the next point, explaining your worth. Lesson 7. Stop explaining your worth. One of the most exhausting habits is trying to prove your value to people who have already decided not to see it. The impulse feels natural. When someone questions your ability, you want to list your wins. When your contribution is overlooked, you want to defend it. When your presence is minimized, you want to say, "Look again, I matter." But strong people resist that temptation. They understand this. Worth is not a sales pitch, it's a fact. A lion doesn't turn when a small dog barks. The lion knows its strength. Its dignity isn't conditional on recognition, and neither is yours. Jonah was a bright young consultant working for a mid-size firm. He poured himself into projects, staying late, volunteering for extra work, producing results no one could deny. Yet at meeting after meeting, his manager took credit for Jonah's ideas, presenting them as his own. At first, Jonah tried to fight back, slipping in reminders, dropping hints, even preparing long emails to showcase his input. But each attempt felt desperate, like he was auditioning for approval that never came. One day, after yet another meeting where his work was paraded under someone else's name, Jonah stopped. He didn't argue. He didn't explain. He simply walked out of the room and decided he wouldn't waste another ounce of energy proving himself to people invested in ignoring him. Within months, he transitioned out of the firm. He launched his own practice, built a portfolio of measurable results, and created a reputation under his own name. Years later, the same colleagues who once dismissed him reached out with proposals for collaboration. When asked why he never insisted they acknowledge his worth back then, Jonah smiled and said, "I did show you who I was. You just weren't listening." That's the power of not explaining. You stop arguing with blindfolds. You build so strongly that your results become louder than any speech. Psychology names a few reasons. Status anxiety makes us fear being overlooked in competitive environments. Impression management pushes us to carefully curate how others see us. And perhaps the most overlooked, the power of exit. When we feel we can't leave a situation, we over-explain to survive it. But here's the paradox. Over-explaining rarely earns respect. It signals desperation, as if our value depends on their recognition. Strong people flip the script. They invest less in convincing, more in creating undeniable proof. The Stoics remind us, the approval of others lies outside our control. What is within our control is the integrity of our actions and the clarity of our purpose. Dignity doesn't beg, it builds. 1. Portfolio over pleading. Instead of trying to convince people with words, build a body of work that speaks for itself. Case studies, measurable results, tangible assets. Proof is stronger than persuasion. 2. Silent boundaries. Don't stay in environments where your value is consistently ignored or stolen. Walking away is louder than any speech. Silence paired with exit is the ultimate statement. 3. The long game. 12-month mastery plan. Map out the skills, networks, and assets you'll build over the next year. Focus relentlessly on becoming undeniable in your craft. When the long game matures, your results become their own argument. When you stop explaining your worth, you stop giving strangers the authority to validate you. You no longer waste breath trying to make blind eyes see. Instead, you build quietly, consistently, until your results speak in a language even your critics can't ignore. And the beauty is this: the right people will recognize your worth without explanation. The wrong people never mattered. So remember, you don't prove value, you embody it. If you're done auditioning for rooms that don't see you, comment results, not reassurance. There's one last seduction, the prettiest cage of all. It doesn't look like weakness. It looks like power. But it isn't. It's revenge. Lesson 8. Stop living for revenge. Revenge is seductive. It whispers promises of satisfaction. If they hurt, you'll finally heal. If they fall, you'll finally rise. But the truth is harsher. Revenge is a beautiful cage. It looks like power, but it keeps you chained. The Stoics warned against it not because justice doesn't matter, but because revenge distorts justice into obsession. Instead of living free, you live reactive. Instead of writing your own story, you let someone else's betrayal become the plotline. The antidote? Amor fati, love of fate. Use even betrayal as fuel for building, not burning. Daniel learned this lesson through betrayal. Early in his career, he built a small firm with a trusted partner. They shared clients, profits, and dreams. Until one day, his partner disappeared, with the clients, with the money, leaving Daniel with debts he hadn't created. Friends urged him to sue, to destroy the man who had wronged him. They wanted him to torch bridges, drag the betrayal into public, and watch the empire collapse. But Daniel didn't. Instead, he turned inward. He reallocated his rage into rebuilding. He started over, brick by brick, focusing on integrity and service. He didn't speak ill of his former partner. He didn't launch a campaign of revenge. He just worked. 5 years later, Daniel's firm was thriving. His former partner was bankrupt, forgotten. And the best part? Daniel never had to gloat. His results spoke for him. That's the paradox. Revenge screams, "Look what I did to them." But real strength whispers, "Look what I built despite them." Psychology calls this the hedonic shortfall of revenge. We expect satisfaction, but the relief is fleeting. The pain lingers. The obsession grows. Then there's the opportunity cost. Every minute spent plotting their downfall is a minute stolen from your own rise. Revenge is expensive, paid in focus, time, and energy you'll never get back. Finally, identity foreclosure. When your purpose becomes punishing someone else, you stop being the author of your life. You live in reaction, not creation. The Stoics would say, betrayal is outside your control. What you build in response is within it. The only way to win is not to mirror the one who wronged you, but to make their actions irrelevant by outgrowing them. 1. Reallocate rage. Each week, write down how much time or thought you've spent replaying someone's downfall. Then reassign that energy. If you spent 3 hours imagining their collapse, put 3 hours into your health, your craft, or your future plans. Rage becomes growth fuel. 2. Success. Silence. Don't brag, don't hint, don't gloat. Build quietly. Let results speak. Silence robs revenge of its performance and replaces it with dignity. 3. Forgiveness as focus. Redefine forgiveness. It doesn't mean excusing the harm. It means reclaiming your attention. Forgiveness is the act of saying, you no longer get rent-free space in my mind. When you stop living for revenge, you don't become passive. You become powerful. You move from reaction to creation. You realize freedom is sweeter than payback, and success is louder than vengeance. The irony is clear. When you let go of revenge, you rise higher than revenge could ever take you. Because revenge is about them. Growth is about you. So remember, don't waste your life plotting fire. Spend it building freedom. Type freedom over fire if you're choosing to outgrow instead of outhurt. Put these 8 together and you don't just get peace, you get trajectory. We began with a simple truth. The strongest people are not the loudest. Their power doesn't come from noise, argument, or revenge. It comes from clarity, restraint, and direction. Across these 8 lessons, we've uncovered what the strong refuse to waste their energy on. Chasing those who walk away, arguing with closed minds, complaining about changeable problems, carrying grudges, seeking validation from strangers, replaying past mistakes, explaining their worth, and living for revenge. Each one of these habits is a leak. Left unchecked, they drain your spirit drip by drip until you wake up exhausted. Not from what life demanded, but from what you gave away freely. But when you close these leaks, something extraordinary happens. Your strength doesn't just return, it compounds. You no longer scatter your attention across meaningless battles. You conserve it, direct it, and invest it where it grows. That is the quiet code. 4 pillars that define it. 1. Attention is currency. Spend it wisely. Every complaint, every argument, every replay of regret is a transaction. Ask yourself, is this purchase worth my peace? 2. Control is a compass. The Stoics called it the dichotomy of control. You always have 2 choices: focus on what you can shape or waste your life wrestling what you can't. Strong people always choose the first. 3. Boundaries are love, not punishment, not revenge. Love. Love for your own time, your own dignity, your own future. Saying no isn't cruelty, it's clarity. 4. Results are the speech. You don't need to argue for your worth. You don't need to scream for recognition. Build, grow, live. Let your results speak the language that noise never could. When you live by these 4, life simplifies. The noise fades. The drama dissolves. You stop scattering your energy and start channeling it. And in that channeling, you discover a strength you never knew you had. Not because it wasn't there, but because it was buried under all the leaks. So here's the closing image to carry with you. Be the steady warhorse. Be the ground that remembers one decisive step. Speak when it serves. Walk when it's time. And let your silence do what noise never could. Build a life no applause can give and no insult can take. This is your invitation to live by the quiet code. To stop spending your days auditioning for others and start living for yourself. To trade noise for direction, validation for alignment, bitterness for growth. And now, it's your turn to act. Engagement. Comment below the 1 leak you'll close this week and your first action in the next 24 hours. Subscribe. If this helped, subscribe to True Stoic Way. New Stoic tools every week to sharpen your mind and steady your spirit. Share. Send this to one friend who's ready to reclaim their quiet power. Sometimes the right reminder at the right time changes everything. Finally, don't stop here. This is just one step in the Stoic path.